I think the most overlooked thing a car person could do is not go to a racing school. And I mean big or small. It could be going to an autocross to learn better technique, or it could be something as high tier as a Skip Barber or something like that, or an Alan Berg Racing School where you're driving a formula car, which I just recently did as well. And that was at Road Atlanta, and it was extraordinary. But in April of this year, I got an email from Tyler Edwards, who's the lead instructor at Primal Racing School. And Primal is really great because it's at Atlanta Motorsports Park. And if you don't know about AMP or Atlanta Motorsports Park, it is a ruthless track. It's absolutely ruthless, and it's great to learn on because there's no brakes. Most tracks have high-speed straightaways one way or another. AMP, there is no such thing. You're always going up and down elevation. You're always turning your head. You're always turning in. You're always hard braking, or you're flooring it. There's no chance to take a break. So for building your endurance in a race car, it's perfect. So Primal Racing School invited me to come out and take their novice school, then their advanced school. But the novice school, I obviously had to pass first. So I went there with a good friend of mine, Do It With Dan, and we get there, and Dan's a little nervous, I'm a little nervous, and we are using Radical SR1s. Now, if you don't know what a Radical is, it's an open cockpit, Hayabusa motorcycle engine powered race car. It is downforce car. So if you were to take a street car and go to AMP, or say a Miata, it's the best example of somebody going to a track day on their own, you're going to use a different driving technique because you're going to use string theory, and you're going to come through and make sure your inputs are very precise. The thing about the Radicals is, in a way, the faster you go, the safer you are. So it's a huge mental battle. At the same time, the Radical is intense because not only are you getting the sights and sound in this very small vehicle, it's kind of claustrophobic for some people. I didn't really have a problem, but some people were like, it's tight in there. And also has no reverse gear, which means the car is sprocket driven. So if you spin this thing out and you don't clutch in, you will spin the motor backwards and blow up the engine. So no pressure from a novice driver. So we get there, day one, basic classroom instruction. We do some lead follows. We get used to going quicker and quicker on AMP. And the crazy thing about the novice course is that if you pass it, you get your SCCA license. What's really neat is you actually have to do passing exercises, overtaking exercises. You also have to have kind of spatial awareness as well, because we do stops and starts. So you start from a rolling start, only feet apart from all the other Radicals. And with a Hans device on, you can't turn your head. So you're kind of just having blind faith that the other students around you are going to do their job. So we basically race to the first corner, try to overtake each other, reset. Race to the first corner over and over again until we kind of have a good idea of everyone's skill level. Basically 3 days of this happen. I go up to AMP every day, do this course, and it beats you up. And I just start getting a little bit faster and a little bit faster. I feel really good, and me and Dan end up passing the first course, which is fantastic. We were nervous, but we're holding fairly consistent times. We weren't doing anything dumb. Dan had one spin out, but thankfully clutched in and everything was great. But I really got to start loving AMP and the Radicals. It actually made me like driving street cars worse. That's the problem. I got so spoiled with the Radical. And the biggest mental battle with the Radical was on the last carousel of AMP. You have to floor it the whole time. To get the downforce and the grip you need that air to come in and squat you down. So you're doing over 100 around this corner the entire time. And when you exit this corner, you almost push to the left and then understeer onto the straightaway. And you're doing about 120, almost 130 miles an hour. And then going to the slowest corner of the entire track. And you can easily lock up because there's no ABS, no traction control, stuff of that nature. And you're revving to almost like 10,000 RPM at all times. I end up going on a trip for filming. I come back, and now it's time for the advanced course. The advanced is way more serious. You're doing a lot more hot lapping and just getting your muscles and your brain just ready for endurance. You do a lot more overtaking. You do a lot more spatial awareness. And you do these kind of practice battles with your instructor, like trying to overtake, trying to defend, trying to overtake, trying to defend, basically to give you the discipline of not hitting someone. And at the same time, knowing when to make your move. Where is it safe? Where is it unsafe? Am I braking too late? Am I braking too early? And what's super cool is that we have these cameras with telemetry data. So anytime we do a session, we go back into our classroom, he opens his laptop up, and you can see everything you've ever done. And so he can go, oh, right here on the graph, you did this wrong. Okay, you should, your brake pressure here, gotta be firmer. Your acceleration here, get sooner on the gas. Like, beat by beat. He can tell you exactly what you're doing wrong, and it works. It's not some gimmick, right, to have all this data. And my biggest issue was I wasn't turning quick enough. So in the radical, a lot of the times in a street car, you'll need to be completely straight in order to floor it. The radical, you can be at like 11 o'clock or almost 10 o'clock and already start making your move to here because there's so much grip. So that was my biggest issue, was coming back around faster. I was going too slow like this when I was squeezing onto power. So I fixed all these issues, and I'm 1/10 away from meeting my goal of the day. I just can't get it. I'm 1/10 off, 2/10 off, 1/10 off. And the track's getting greasier and greasier throughout the day. Times typically get slower on a racetrack during the day because things happen to the surface. Finally, I go on a 35 lap stint. And I'm stubborn. I'm like, I'm getting this. And on my second to last lap, I broke into the time I wanted. So I'm like, okay, it's possible. I can do this. I need to remember what I did. I graduate from the advanced school. I'm really stoked about it. I'm like, I don't know like how I'll do in an actual race, but I did pretty good against my other students. I felt very confident. I felt like I was in the same ball league as some of the older drivers who were more experienced. So I felt pretty good, pretty confident, not overly confident, but pretty confident. And that's like the difference on a racetrack is there's brave and there's stupid. And I felt brave because I got over the mental block of flooring it around corners. Fast forward a few months and I get an email from Tyler. He goes, hey, I want you to race. And I'm like, I don't know, Tyler. He's like, you got it. I go, okay. So I show up. I don't even have my own fire suit. I don't even have my own helmet that's legal for this. Because, you know, certain laws, you have to have a certain helmet, a certain Hans device, all that. So I had to rent my own equipment. I had to rent my racing shoes. So I'm going out there against much more experienced drivers, including Ben from Gears and Gasoline. Ben from Gears and Gasoline was my number one opponent. And he has more track wins than almost anyone I know in my close circle of friends on YouTube. But he was not used to rear-wheel drive. He races in a Honda Civic. He has more time in the seat on track, but I have more time in the radicals. So we end up being the perfect 1v1, almost identical lap times within 2/10. And so as we go out for qualifying, Ben's like, I'm going to get you. I'm like, yeah, you're probably right. And the worst part about it was 2 weeks beforehand was a July 4th drift event at AMP. And that greased up the entire track. So it was what AMP described as the worst grip driving conditions they've pretty much ever seen. So I had an advantage in one way because I knew how to steer into a skid. And so sometimes when I would come out of turn 6, which is a turn where you squat and come up, I could just floor it and catch the skid and just keep going. And that was a huge advantage. That's what I would gain from any other driver. And so I qualified middle of the pack. I'm like, okay, I made a decision not to burn my tires up. There's no changing tires in this race. I went through qualifying. I was about a second off of what I wanted. Just stop. I made the strategic decision. If I'm going to do it, it's going to be in the race. So the race starts. And what's funny is Ben beat me in qualifying, but it actually put him in a worse position. So when we came into the rolling start, I had the inside and said, no matter what, I am not giving up this inside. And I just said, just be brave. Just be brave. As soon as that green flag happens, I'm going. And you have to remember, in this same group, we're racing SR3s, which are faster radicals, and also Pragas, which are these really crazy looking race cars from the Czech Republic in Prague. They're triple the horsepower, if not quadruple the horsepower. So we're doing multi-class racing in one race. So we're going, and I get on the inside, and me and Ben are neck and neck on the exit, because I took a sharper corner, but he had a better line, because he had more exit speed. We're neck and neck like this, and then an SR3 got in Ben's way. And I was like, no way that just happened. And I just went for it. I got ahead and ended up passing one other driver about a few laps later. Didn't even really know where I was on the entire pack, but I was leading. And I'm just driving. I just go into full autopilot mode. I basically try to go back in my brain to what my training was like at my racing school. That 35 lap stint I did. I said, just do what you did there. Pretend like there's no one behind you. Pretend like there's no one in front of you unless you see them. The more I looked in the rearview mirror, the less I saw people. But on one corner, I slightly messed up, and then an SR1 just shows up. I'm like, no, absolutely not. I end up defending the line once going into turn one and then some other times. But overall, I played it very safe. I was probably doing a second slower than I probably could have, but I was just staying ahead as much as I could. And I was consistently staying within like 2 or 3 tenths. Pretty good. Overall, I felt really solid, and I crossed the line, and I get out of the car, and they go, dude, you won. I go, I won? They go, yeah, you won. I'm like, my first race ever? And Tyler comes up to me, gives me a big fat pat on the back. I go, is this real? Yeah, I can't even believe it, because as kids who love cars, you always dream of racing cars. And you always get told that it's pretty much a near impossible goal, right? It's one of those things where not only is it hard to get into a racing league, it's also intense to win it. And I was going against some veterans 2 or 3 years into this series, which this is not a narcissistic thing. I just was so proud of myself and having the guts to stay in it rather than like chicken out and be worried about other drivers. Then I get the news, okay, you won. By the way, you have another race in 30 minutes. Like, oh my God. So I feel okay about it. I get it back out there, and just like in Star Wars, and then like I got a bad feeling about this. I was like, I don't know what it is, but I have kind of a bad feeling about this one. But I'll play it as safe as I can until I have an opportunity. So I get out there. Ben really had a hard time this race. He got blocked in. Once again, our times during the race were very close. So we were great, but he just couldn't get the distance on me. He couldn't get me because we were too even. And then he got blocked by some other drivers. So I kind of weaseled my way through some at the early stages of the race and got away from Ben. So fast forward, there's only 4 minutes left in the race. And I don't know there's only 4 minutes left in the race. And there's an SR3 in front of me, and he's never gotten away from me. And I start to get greedy. I go, I could beat this SR3. I'm pretty sure I could. So I chase him down for about 3 laps, and he is maybe 3 car lengths away from me. And I'm like, I can get him. I know I can get him. You have to remember, the track is greasy. My tires are hot. I'm probably going to run out of grip pretty soon. Well, I said, you know what? I won one race. What the hell? And so we get onto the main straightaway. I'm drafting behind him briefly. He starts moving to the right, which is the proper racing line. And I go, eh. So I go to the inside, and I'm coming in hot. I didn't realize how fast I was going, but I was actually doing probably the fastest exit speed maybe of the day. So because I was chasing an SR3, because you don't really realize how much better you are driving chasing someone. And I go over, and I just run out of grip. So I get on the brakes, and I get the wobble on the front wheels, and they sort of lock up. It gives me that little wiggle. And then SR3, I had to kind of let him go. He goes, or he either goes in front of me or behind me. I'll have to watch the live stream. But either way, he escapes the situation. Thankfully, I scrubbed enough speed to where I head here. Turn 1 is right here. I turn my head. I go, it's not going to happen. Yeah, I make an executive decision. It is too dangerous for me to cut in front of this other race car and just go, you know what, whatever. And I braked, I slowed down, and I just bopped onto the grass. Just bump, bump. And I sit there and I go, you idiot. And I start going to third person mode, like, David, you idiot. You were doing great. Why did you get greedy? And I get a guy yelling at me on the fence, hey, does that have reverse? I go, no. So I'm stuck in the grass. And then there's a caution flag. People are going all the way around. They finally get me out of there. I drive in, but then my mirror, for some reason, had come loose. So, because there's like an Allen key right here, and it just got loose from racing and the vibrations. And I pull into the pit. I go, can you fix my mirror so I can go back out racing? Because I was like, I know I can do good still. I want to at least finish this race. So I go into the pit, they fix the mirror, I drive back out, and they don't let me back on track. They go, yeah, the race is over. I'm like, you gotta be kidding me. I said, you had 4 minutes. It's like, are you serious? So it was very bittersweet. And I remember pulling into the pit and going up to the podium. They gave me the trophy, and I'm standing on top. And yeah, I feel pretty awesome. But then I come down, they go, and now for the second race. I'm like, oh, come to find out, I was in the lead on the second race the whole time. So I could have won twice in a row, but lesson learned. You know, lesson learned is I still had an amazing first day of racing ever in a radical, crazy race car. I'm incredibly privileged to do that. Huge thanks to Primal and Tyler. It was amazing. If you want to go learn how to drive race cars, Primal Racing is definitely the place to go. And I just cannot be more thankful. And now I have the right to say I'm a licensed race car driver.
Between cannonballs and rallies and car treks, I've been on well over 100 road trips, but one of the things that I always see is that nobody else is terribly prepared. And this is not just a jab at Freddie, but generally people don't bring the tools, the supplies, and the things they need to make it all the way to the destination of their road trip. And so I decided, after building kind of the kit that I take between cars for the long drives I go in unreliable vehicles, as the ultimate road trip survival kit. And you'll find a link in the description below to an Amazon shopping cart of the things that I think you need in order to get there and get there without a tow bill attached to it. So check it out now, buy what you think you want, let me know in the comments what I left out, and we'll try to keep refining it so we can build the ultimate road trip survival box.